In this video, we will walk you through how to access coastal and ocean data through SeaUse using ERDAP. Specifically, this video will explain what ERDAP is, the basics of the ERDAP interface, how to understand the data access form, how to customize the data you view or download by applying constraints to variables, how to download the data in a file format of your choosing, and finally, how to visualize the data by creating a graph. If you're interested in only specific sections of this video, then check the description for timestamps. SeaUse uses the Environmental Research Division's Data Access Program, or ERDAP, to provide users with access to many of our datasets. ERDAP was originally developed by the U.S. National Ocean and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. It is utilized throughout North America to facilitate data access, and it has many features that familiar users find helpful. With a little practice, you'll be able to filter, download, and visualize all the data you need without the extra that you don't. In this video, we're assuming that you have already selected a dataset of interest from the SeaUse data catalog and have found your way to the ERDAP record. This ERDAP interface is from SeaUse specific, but different data sources may have different branding. For today's example, we're going to look at the ERDAP record for CTD data collected along Line P off Canada's west coast into the Northeast Pacific. Upon opening the ERDAP record, the first page you will see is the data access form. There are lots of different options and variables, so let's break them down. At the top left of the page, you will find the dataset title, the name of the institution that created the dataset, and other information, including a summary of the dataset, its metadata record, and a link to the Make a Graph page. For the purposes of this video, we'll focus on using the data access form and the Make a Graph pages. ERDAP is a data platform that is typically used to share gridded or tabular data. This means that each of the variables listed on the left side of the page functions like a column in a giant spreadsheet. Each line shows you the name of the variable and the unit of measurement. For example, seawater temperature measured in degrees Celsius. The advantage of getting data from ERDAP is that you can specify which of these variables you want before you view or download the data. By default, all variables will be included in the download file. To remove a variable, click the checkbox at the left of the variable name. You can be even more specific about the data you'd like to download by applying optional constraints to each of the variables. Constraints restrict the amount of data that will be included in your download file, which can be particularly helpful when working with large datasets. We will cover constraints in more detail in the next segment. To the right of the optional constraints are the minimum and maximum values present for each of the variables. It's important to review these columns if you plan to apply constraints to the dataset. The final essential component of the data access form is the download area, which lies below the columns we just discussed. We'll talk more in depth about generating files for download shortly. If you're dealing with a particularly large dataset, or if you have an interest only in a certain range of values, then you can choose to set constraints that will restrict the amount of data that is included in your file download. Let's take a look at how to do this using the iOS CTD profile data. Looking under the constraint number 1 column, you will notice that there is a default constraint applied to the dataset, geographic area. If we leave this as is, we will only access data from the Line P area of the Northeast Pacific. Under the list of values, we can select from the drop-down a variety of other areas that could be of interest from this same dataset. From looking at the time variable, we can see from the minimum and maximum columns that data are available back to July of 1965 and current to July of 2021, as of the time this video was produced. If you want to change the date range, then you can either use the slider below the variable or manually enter a date in year-month-day format. Let's set the first constraint as 1980-01-01 so we can see all of the data collected in the last 40 or so years. We can also customize the range of values that we'd like to see for other variables. For instance, let's say that we're interested in how the surface temperature and salinity has changed at Station Papa at the end of line P, located at 50 degrees north, 145 degrees west. To get the data from just around Station Papa, in the longitude row you can type negative 145.5 in the constraint number 1 column, and ensure that the operator selected is the greater than or equal to symbol. In the constraint number 2 column, type negative 144.5, and ensure that the operator selected is less than or equal to. These values are negative because longitude for this dataset is positive for degrees east, as noted in the variable name. Similarly, to constrain the latitude, we're going to enter 49.5 in the constraint number 1 column and 50.5 in the constraint number 2 column. Lastly, to get just the surface data less than 5 meters, enter 5 in the constraint number 2 column for the depth variable. On some datasets, you may also consider using the sliders below, but there are some erroneous data values in this variable, so the slider is not super helpful here. Remember that you can also choose to remove certain variables from the download file if you're not interested in them. This can be done by clicking on the blue checkbox next to the variable names to remove them, or by clicking Uncheck All and then selecting those variables that are of interest to you. For this search, we're only interested in the latitude, longitude, time, depth, seawater temperature, and seawater practical salinity. Now we're ready to view and download the data. ERDAP allows you to generate a wide range of output files, including CSV, various NetCDF file types, JSON, and PDF, among quite a few others. The default output is an HTML table file that can be viewed directly within your internet browser with no download required. We recommend that you start with this so that you may confirm any constraints have been applied correctly, and that the data match what you're looking for. It's also the best method to use if you simply want to browse the data without downloading them. To view the HTML table, click Submit. This will show you all of the data that meet your requirements. Note that you can't sort, filter, or manipulate any of the data from this file. To do that, you'll need to choose another output file type. Returning to the data access form, you can either continue to add or adjust the constraints and variables, or proceed with generating a file for download. To do so, click the drop-down menu and choose the file type. Then click Submit to initiate the download. ERDAP also has basic visualization capabilities. To access them, click on Make a Graph. In the Graph Type section, you can select the basic features of your graph, including which variables you want to form the X and Y axes, and whether you want your graph to feature markers or lines and so forth. The preview of the graph on the right will update based on your selections. The default graph view for most datasets is a map with a marker for location of the data. You can zoom in or out of the map or change its center point. If we want to make a quick visual confirmation of the data selected, we can change the variables here like we did on the data access form. We start by changing the x-axis to be time, the y-axis to be depth, and the color to be seawater temperature. You will notice that nothing has changed on the graph. This won't happen until you click on Redraw the Graph. If we do this now, it is a rather large dataset and may take a moment to load, so let's go ahead and add a few more constraints. We can see that the geographic area is still limited to line P. If we want Station Papa alone, we need to add the latitude and longitude constraints as we did on the data access form. And to get just the surface data, we'll add the depth constraint of less than 5 meters. If we click on Redraw the Graph, we then get a visual of where the data are located throughout history and depth. On a more cosmetic level, you can use the graph settings area to adjust marker styles and sizes, as well as which colors are used. The exact options will vary based on the graph type you select, so the settings for a graph that uses markers will have different options than for a line graph. Click Redraw the Graph to see the effects of your changes. When you're happy with the visualization, then you can download either the image file or the data that you visualized. To get the image, first set the file type. We recommend selecting the PNG, large PNG, or transparent PNG options. Then click Download the data or an image. To get the data, choose one of the tabular file types, like CSV or whatever is appropriate for your uses. Last, if you like the data visualized but are wishing you could add in another variable or two, just select the Data Access form at the top, and it will take you back to that page with your graphing constraints pre-filled. You can then add in other variables simply by clicking the checkboxes on the left-hand side before selecting the file type and hitting Submit. That concludes our walkthrough of accessing CEUS data through ERDAP. We hope you found this video helpful. Follow CEUS on Twitter and Facebook for more tutorials and for news about what we're up to.